Hello. Hi, boys and girls. Yes, it's me again, Acadiana's Mother Goose. You know who I am, don't you? 'Cause you come here before to listen to me. And I'm going to read some more of my fairy tales today. Would you like to hear them? Just do this. Just put your head up and down. Tell me yes, please. Tell me. Oh, good. So you want to hear some more fairy tales? Well, this is from one of my books called My First Treasury Fairy Tales. And they have multiple stories in here. Now, last time I read Rumpelstiltskin to you, but I also have today Hansel and Gretel. Remember Hansel and Gretel? And the house made out of candy and cake? Well, I'm going to read this to you, okay? In a tiny cottage at the edge of the forest, a poor woodcutter lived with his children, Hansel and Gretel. One day, the woodcutter called the children into the house. "Our cupboards are empty," he sighed. "I work hard every day, but I still do not have enough to feed us." The woodcutter said he needed help from the children. "I'm afraid I have to teach you how to hunt, fish, and gather fruit," he said. "Tomorrow we will go into the woods to start the lessons," said the woodcutter. Hansel and Gretel wanted to make their father proud. "Father is very worried," said Gretel. "We should do everything we can to help him." The next morning, Hansel and Gretel woke up very early. They set out into the woods while their father was still sound asleep. "Maybe we will find enough food for a big supper," said Hansel. See, here is Hansel right here, and we have Gretel right there. Hansel had brought bread with him. He dropped a trail of crumbs behind him as they walked. "Now we'll easily find our way back home," he said. Hansel and Gretel wandered through the woods. They saw fruit, but it was too high to reach. They saw squirrels and deer, but had no way to catch them. By afternoon, they noticed they were in the deepest, scariest part of the woods. They saw nothing familiar about them, around them. Worst of all, their path of breadcrumbs had been eaten by birds. So here they are, walking in the forest, going into the very, very dark, scary forest. And they were dropping breadcrumbs so they could find their way home. But the little birdies ate the breadcrumbs when they decided to go back home. The children soon reached a clearing. Before them was a colorful little house. The house was covered with sweets. Hungry, the children broke pieces from the house and began to eat. Just then, an old woman came outside. "Why, are those children I see?" said the woman. "Forgive me, I'm old and cannot see very well." "Yes, we are children," said Hansel. "Well then, come inside and let me feed you," said the woman. The old woman fed the children until they were very full. "Just one more dish to make," laughed the old woman. Suddenly she grabbed Hansel and Gretel by the ears and pulled them towards the oven door. "She's a witch!" cried Gretel. The children freed themselves from the witch's grasp and pushed her into the oven. See, here are the children right here. They're eating well, it's like a gingerbread house, but it's all full of sweets. And here is the old wicked witch who is feeding them full of food, and then she's going to try to put them in her oven. Hansel and Gretel began to run away. But near the door, they spotted a chest full of treasure. They filled their pockets with jewels and gold coins. After a day of searching, the children found the way back to their father's cottage. The woodcutter ran to hug his children. "I've missed you both so much," he said. "I promise we'll always have enough to eat." "You're right, Father," said Hansel, showing him the treasure. "We will." The family lived happily ever after, and they never went hungry again. See, here's Hansel and Gretel, and they're going back to their home and finding their father, and everyone is so happy. And now with the gold and the jewels that they got from that witch, they will have food from now on. They won't go hungry anymore. Did you enjoy that story? What about, let's see, Cinderella? I love Cinderella. Well, it's a beautiful girl named Cinderella. Lived in a big palace with her stepmother and 2 stepsisters. They all treated Cinderella very badly. They forced her to do all the chores. She washed the dishes, scrubbed the floors, ironed the clothes, and picked up messes left behind by her stepsisters. Sometimes the stepsisters made fun of Cinderella's plain clothes. "Look at my dress, Cinderella," said one stepsister. "I'm sure you wish that you could have such fancy things." Cinderella was never unkind to her stepsisters in return. "Yes, it is a very lovely dress," she smiled. One day, a letter arrived at the house. "It is an invitation to the royal ball," cried the stepmother. She turned to Cinderella. "Too bad you can't come. You must stay home and weed the garden." The stepmother and stepsisters put on their most elegant dresses. Cinderella watched them leave. She wanted to go to the ball more than anything. She walked out to the garden and began to cry. See, here is Cinderella in the castle with her stepmom and her 2 stepsisters, and showing all the work that she has to do at the castle. "Why must they be so cruel?" she sniffed. "If only I could go to the royal ball too." Suddenly, a beautiful fairy appeared in the garden. I am your fairy godmother, she said. I'm here to make your wish come true. She waved her magic wand. Cinderella's clothes turned to a lovely, lovely gown. Her shoes became delicate glass slippers. Oh, thank you, laughed Cinderella. The fairy godmother smiled and waved her magic wand again. A nearby pumpkin transformed into a beautiful coach, and a pair of mice turned into a horse and driver. See, here she is in the garden with her fairy godmother, who's going to help her, give her a really beautiful dress and a way to get to the ball. Remember, said the fairy godmother, at the stroke of midnight, the magic spell will end. Cinderella sped away in the coach. At the royal ball, the guests noticed Cinderella right away. She is so beautiful. How graceful she is. She must be a princess, they whispered. Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters saw her arrive, but they did not recognize her in such fine clothes. The prince noticed Cinderella too. He thought she was the prettiest girl he had ever seen. He immediately asked Cinderella to dance. The prince and Cinderella danced together all night. Before they knew it, they were in love. But soon the clock began to strike 12. Cinderella rushed away from the prince and out the door. She left behind a single glass slipper on the castle steps. Cinderella ran all the way home. The spell was over, but she felt very happy. So here she is going to the castle in her pumpkin coach. And here she is at the ball, dancing with the prince in her beautiful, beautiful dress that her fairy godmother made for her. The prince found the glass slipper on the steps. He vowed to find the slipper's mysterious owner. The prince visited many houses, but the slipper did not fit anyone. Finally, the prince knocked on the last door. Inside were Cinderella's mean stepsisters. They tugged and pulled, but the slipper didn't fit. Just then, Cinderella spoke. "May I try on the slipper?" she asked. The prince thought Cinderella looked familiar. She tried on the slipper and it fit. Cinderella and her prince were soon married. She never heard from her mean stepmother or her stepsisters again. And here she is with her stepmom and her stepsisters and the prince trying on the glass slipper, and it fit Cinderella. That's such a lovely story. Did you enjoy Cinderella? It's one of my favorite stories, and I just love that she had a fairy godmother to help her. Now the next story is another good story. Have you ever heard of Jack and the Beanstalk? Well, I'm going to read that to you today, okay? There once was a boy named Jack. Jack lived with his mother in an old house outside of town. They had very little money to buy food. In fact, their only possession was a cow. One day, Jack's mother asked him to sell the cow. "Take her to the market," she said. "We need money for food." On the way into town, a stranger asked Jack where he was going. "I'm going to sell this cow," replied Jack. "I will give you 5 magic beans for it," said the man. Jack accepted the deal at once. He ran right home and showed his mother the magic beans. "What have you done?" she cried. "We can't buy food with your silly beans." She threw the beans out the window and sent Jack to bed. The next morning, Jack could not believe his eyes. A huge beanstalk had grown from the magic beans. Here he is right here. There's Jack with the cow that he sold to this man. And this is Jack with his mother and the giant beanstalk that grew outside of his window. The beanstalk reached all the way to the clouds. Jack began to climb it. He climbed higher and higher until his house was just a little speck below. Soon he found himself in the clouds. He spotted a small path leading to an enormous castle. "Maybe they have food to share with Mother and me," Jack said to himself. He followed the path up to the castle and knocked on the 2 tall doors. Knock, knock, knock. There was no answer. But the doors were so big that Jack could walk beneath them. He was soon inside. See, Jack, he's at the top of his beanstalk, up in the clouds, and he sees this big, beautiful castle. So he's going to see if maybe they have some food for him and his mother. So he slid right under the door because the door was so big. Inside the castle were chairs as tall as houses and tables as tall as trees. Jack heard a sound coming from the next room. He pushed his way through the thick carpet and followed the sound. Jack hardly believed his eyes. A giant was sitting at a huge table counting some gold coins. Clink, clink, clink went the coins. Jack climbed the leg of the table to get a better look. Suddenly, the giant stopped counting and looked around. "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman," shouted the giant. Jack dashed under a teacup to hide. Later, the giant fell asleep. Jack quietly snatched a gold coin and ran from the castle. Oh wait, I need to show you the picture. Here's the giant counting his gold coins. And there's Jack under the little teacup watching the giant count all of his gold coins that he has on the table. So you know that Jack took one of those to take back to his mother. Jack reached the beanstalk and threw the coin down to his yard. Then he climbed down. Later, Jack went back to the castle. he saw the giant holding a hen in his lap. "Lay!" yelled the giant. Immediately, the hen lay a golden egg. When the giant fell asleep again, Jack snatched the hen and brought it to his mother. Still curious about the giant's treasures, Jack climbed the beanstalk once more. He found the giant laying next to a golden harp. When the giant fell asleep, Jack tried to take the harp. Suddenly, the harp began to yell. "Here's Jack. The giant is sleeping right here, and here is Jack, and he's trying to steal the harp. And here's the little chicken that lays the golden eggs." But the harp, when he grabbed the harp started to yell. My goodness gracious. "Help! Someone is stealing me!" cried the harp. The giant woke up.
"Fee, fi, fo, fum, I see the face of an Englishman,"
shouted the giant. Jack grabbed the harp and dashed out of the castle. He ran back to the beanstalk. With the giant close behind, Jack climbed down the beanstalk. He handed the harp to his mother and picked up an axe. With 3 mighty swings, Jack chopped down the beanstalk. Jack and his mother never saw the giant again. They lived happily ever after. Here's Jack running away with the golden harp, with the giant chasing behind him. But he made it down, and he cut the beanstalk down so the giant would never bother them again. I just love that story, don't you? Now, let's quickly just have a little imaginary cup of tea, and I'll get my little butterfly spoon, and we can have an imaginary tea party. If you have a little cup at home, just get a little cup and just play like you're pouring some tea in the little cup, just like that. And have your mommy or your daddy help you with that. And then you can have this little sugar. You can play like you're putting a little bit of sugar in your tea. You see that? And then we have some cream. And now remember, this is an imaginary tea party. And then we'll put a little bit of cream, imaginary tea. There you go, right there. And you just stir it up really good. And then take a little sip of your tea. I have mine on little leaf holder. So see, you can have a little tea party. It's just an imaginary tea party. There's not really any tea there. So you just, yum, 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 yum. Isn't that good? I just love to have imaginary tea parties with my little Mother Goose right here. Now remember who I am? I'm Acadiana's Mother Goose. And you may see me around the Acadiana area. I sometimes visit homes, I visit daycares, and I visit some senior centers in the area. Mother Goose just loves to visit people. So I want to thank you all for coming and visiting with me today. And next time we'll have some more stories written by some wonderful local children's authors. I hope you look forward to it as much as I do. Thank you so much, and you've been very good out there, quietly listening to my stories. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. I loved having this time with you today. Now remember what my name is? Let me hear you say it. Acadiana's Mother Goose. That's right, Acadiana's Mother Goose. And I'll be here again next time. And I do hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Thank you again for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Goodbye.